American history books teach students about numerous battles in World War II, but the battle on the home front often gets overshadowed. In this week's Northwoods Adventure, Shane Lee visits the Linden Hill Mansions to learn about the Minnesota home front during the Second World War.
When discussing World War II, Nazi Germany and the massive battles demand a lot of attention, but a great deal of the war effort happened right here in Minnesota.
Soldiers had a powerful ally at home, and it was the citizens who stayed home, the farmers who fed them, the people who worked in the factories.
In the early 40s, workers mined more than 300 million tons of iron ore from the Cuyuna Range. Then ammunition was made in Arden Hills.
10% of the ammunition used worldwide by all the Allied forces was made here in Minnesota.
The Minnesota Historic Society says 326,000 Minnesotans served in the war. Most of those recruits enlisted through Fort Snelling in Minneapolis.
I talked to a visitor the other day, and he told me 65 of them went down to Fort Snelling, and only 5 of them stayed.
Recruits with medical issues were not allowed in the armed forces, but many farmers were also turned away to produce food. Most of the crops grown by farmers went overseas, requiring civilians to grow their own food. One of the Victory Gardens in Little Falls was behind the Linden Hills Mansions.
If you happen to live in a place that had no land, like an apartment or something like that, you could go and plant in this community garden.
Even after growing their own food, people had to ration what they ate.
People want to live.
For someone who did not live through the era, it is difficult to envision being rationed only 2 ounces of sugar and 1 egg per week. But Sister Bernice Reeland remembers.
I remember having the coupons and the rationing, especially of sugar and sweets.
Food was not the only need that was rationed. People had to keep mending old clothes, and some folks even took up knitting for the troops.
We were frugal in terms of what we used and what we spent and what my parents spent.
Some people not only cut back on food, but actually starved themselves at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. The clinic performed experiments on volunteers to find the best way to nurse starvation victims back to health.
They found out all of the different things that they could do to help our men and women who were coming home that had been put in these horrible conditions.
Conditions may have been bad overseas, but the people of Minnesota worked extremely hard to help as much as possible. Shane Lee, Lakeland News.
If you've enjoyed this segment of Lakeland News, please consider making a tax-deductible contribution to Lakeland Public Television.